Hello and welcome to DAO Watch Arbitrum. I am your host, CryptoSI, and this will be a bi-weekly show where we will have various guests on to discuss Arbitrum in great detail, the things that are happening within the DAO, the things that are possibly going to happen within the DAO, and hopefully we're going to get on some really interesting community members and delegates, service providers, etc., etc. I want to introduce you to my glamorous co-host, Klaus. Klaus, please say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Klaus, founder of Hack Humanity. We do hackathons and innovation programs, and for the last 20 months, I've been deep diving in Arbitrum DAO in particular. Most people there or outside of Arbitrum know me as the creator of GovHacks, the first decentralized governance hackathon. And I've recently became a smaller delegate in the delegate incentive program within Arbitrum. So, I've been tracking and monitoring, all of the relationships, all the different types of proposals, the evolution of the DAO the last 20 months. So, can comment on a lot of the different perspectives and happy to be here.
So that's the idea. So every week we're going to get different guests on, but Klaus will remain a constant throughout the series' lifespan. We want him to give us honest and objective opinions and make sure that we can properly disseminate what's happening in the DAO and lower the barrier to entry for people who may not be too familiar with Arbitrum. Finally, the phenomenal, handsome gentleman that we have on my far left is Joseph, also known as CupOjoseph. CupOjoseph, thank you so much for joining us on our first ever episode. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you managed to find yourself in Arbitrum?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Joseph. I'm a Solidity developer. I've been working in crypto and on DeFi apps and Ethereum for about 7 or 8 years now. I started at Consensus in 2017, and I've just been full on in crypto since then. So right now I'm working on a new stablecoin on Arbitrum called Neurites, and I'm trying to build a new, really Arbitrum native stablecoin for the ecosystem.
Super interesting. Okay. That's difficult because I want to ask you more about that, but we have already got our 3 topics lined up. The 3 topics are, first of all, a massive Arbitrum airdrop, which is rumored to be worth over 500 or 500 million Arb. I wanted to speak briefly about the Security Council and those elections, and our final topic would have been the OpCo proposal. So, for people who are watching, I'm going to put links to all of these proposals in the description below, so you can go and check out the proposals for yourself. If there's anything that we've said that you agree with or don't agree with, feel free to comment or join the forums and have your say. So, first of all, Joseph, please tell me or tell us more about the Arbitrum Builder Appreciation Drop. And as you're doing it, I'm going to share my screen so that people can actually see, because there are some quite interesting graphs and things like that you've put here.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to. Basically, Arbitrum did this massive airdrop right about 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years exactly last week, actually.
Yep, I received my airdrop as well. Yeah, that's kind of what got me started.
Very good, very good. I was already using Arbitrum and building stuff on Arbitrum, and just the technology of Arbitrum was so far ahead of every other L2, in my opinion, at the time, and still is in a lot of ways. So there was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of new innovations happening on Arbitrum, and the idea that, well, we could get these retroactive airdrop rewards was a big draw for a lot of the original apps on Arbitrum that are still some of the biggest apps, right? And that was a period of tremendous growth, as you can see in the first graph at the top of the proposal. And yeah, I would like to see that growth happen again, because it seems like Arbitrum has kind of stalled out a little bit in the last couple quarters, and I think that we can bring a lot of energy to Arbitrum again by creating more retroactive rewards for people building innovative and useful protocols that actually drive TVL and drive users to Arbitrum. And I want to try to capture some of that excitement that I feel we've been missing a bit of recently. So the idea of this proposal is not to do an airdrop right away or even to pick the amount, really. It's to start the process and start the discussions in the community and create a council to start working on an airdrop proposal that's a lot more serious and can start listing criteria for things to do on Arbitrum or apps to use on who to be included on future ones. And it's really a starting place so that we can try to capture that excitement, like I said, and start retroactively rewarding all the people who have been making Arbitrum great all these years, right? So it's been 2 years since the last one. Time to start working on the next one. There's no date set. There's no amount decided or dollar value decided. This is the first step, but I'm really happy with the kind of response that we've gotten, and there's a lot of excitement, a lot of great questions to be answered, and yeah, we're happy to get into any parts of that, but we're going. It's happening.
Klaus, I want to get your opinion on this proposal. Obviously, you work for, or you've founded Hack Humanity. How do you see onboarding within Arbitrum? Do you feel like something like this could help, or do you also share the opinion that perhaps new onboarding of new developers and new projects is slowing up, if not stagnating?
I think it's a fiercely competitive marketplace, right? And in the supply and demand tension of talent, it's talent's choice of where they go, and it's not only the technology that's driving the decision. It's also what support is available, whether that's financial support or would Arbitrum or a competitor to Arbitrum supply co-marketing or advice or technical support. So I think there's a whole equation. It's not just the money that's the inducement. So while I agree airdrop could be one solution, I think it's really about incentives. And what I like about Joseph's proposal is he's not saying, I think in my assessment, you've used the 500 million as a powerful provocation to kind of poke the bear and say, hey, wake up, guys. But not necessarily.
Oh, dang.
Yeah.
Copy. It's just a provocation. But
not necessarily that's the answer, right? Yeah. So one of the feedbacks that I saw Joseph get was like, okay, it's not fully fleshed out and blah, 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 and expecting all of that to be done. This is something that I don't agree as a pattern in DAOs is like, you've got to get all the answers together as a proposer by yourself and do a whole bunch of speculative labor, hoping that, that answer emerges. I think the feedback process should be emergent. You put something up as a bud of an idea on the forum, and then requirements gathering, it takes shape. And if we actually want to do a deeper dive of giving it shape, then let's put some cash towards that. Let's spin up a team like Joseph suggested to actually put the meat on the bones of what this could be. But I think we seriously need to be thinking about incentivization, retention, those kind of things, and have a joined up strategy in Arbitrum.
Well, luckily we do have actually a bona fide builder on the call right now, who is Joseph. So let's ask the man himself. So Joseph, in terms of incentives, what are the things that draw you towards a chain, and what were the things within Arbitrum that drew you towards it as opposed to other chains? Was it purely because Arbitrum was there before the likes of ZK Sync or Scroll, or was there another reason?
Well, just to be clear, nothing I've ever built on Arbitrum, and I've released several apps and projects on Arbitrum, which have hundreds, if not thousands of users, millions of dollars in TVL brought to the chain. Nothing I've ever launched on Arbitrum has ever been given any amount of Arb as any incentive by the DAO ever. Directly.
You've never got any grants or anything?
Yeah. No, not from the DAO. I've been my most recent stablecoin project, Neurite, has been given a grant from the Arbitrum Foundation to spend specifically on security audits. After being rejected from the security audit program that the DAO was running, they've since expanded that program. So if you're thinking about building on Arbitrum or anywhere, if you want to launch a new DeFi app, the biggest individual cost that you might have is just doing a security audit. Even if it's a simple protocol and you build the whole thing yourself, audits can still cost $30,000, $50,000, $70,000, So that might be prohibitively expensive if you want to do things right, if you want to do things safely, right? So the security incentives, I think, is a huge one and is a really good reason to build on Arbitrum now. And we've had this incentive detox for the last several months where Arbitrum gave away a ton of incentives. They weren't super effective because every project was giving them away at the same time. So they were kind of cannibalizing each other. And everyone realized that's not working. We need to, pull the plug and slow the horse down. And the airdrop proposal that I've made now is really to say, hey, let's go a lot slower. And let's look at what worked and what didn't work. And the projects that successfully brought new TVL to the chain, they should be rewarded. And if you tried something novel, even if it didn't work, maybe you get rewards too, right? So we can go back and with surgical precision say, this is what's working. This was an experiment that we want to incentivize. This was, just an extraction app, that was just created for farming. We don't need to put incentives on that. And let's do it better this time. And deciding all of those things, there are hundreds of apps on Arbitrum. Deciding how to align all these incentives most effectively, that's a full-time job for several people. So we can't expect the delegates to do this on the weekend for free and push a proposal, like you said, Klaus, that already has all the meat on the bone, so to speak, right away. I think we need to hire a team, and it should be several people's full-time job to make sure the incentives on the network are working and are cost-effective and are competitive with the other ecosystems. So that kind of gets into where I want the OpCo, or rather where I'm hoping the operational company that the DAO is spinning up right now goes. And maybe designing incentives or working on those kind of things is something that it can take on in the future.
Let's not go on to the OpCo yet.
Okay.
That's we're going to save that for a few minutes time. I wanted to follow up with Klaus actually. Klaus, the proposal's been live for almost 2 months. So I was wondering, with the idea that we have to get some sort of team together to build out this proposal, or to come with something more tangible that can be a way to have this sort of airdrop, retroactive airdrop for builders. What sorts of people, or maybe service providers, or what sorts of skill sets would you like to see within this new startup council? What sorts of people would be ideal to be involved in this from your point of view?
Well, I've read all the comments in this proposal. Like one of them was suggesting that the ARDC, this Arbitrum Research and Development Council or Committee, could take that on as a job. So Arbitrum has, declared a pool of cash and a bunch of research service providers that can go out and do this kind of research tasks. Recently, that's just done a whole analysis of the effectiveness of the grants programs that have, happened the last 2 years. But it could also do, work around incentives, around, what are the priority kind of builders' needs. So that's one angle. That's been the comment of some delegates, that we should, repurpose or use that structure that already exists. And then there's the, or let's wait till OpCo exists. This is a bit of a, a wait and see kind of attitude, a bit in the DAO, which, there's been a lot of, it's in the kind of too hard basket for now. Let's wait till SOS, the strategic objective settings, is done, or let's wait till the OpCo is done. But then, it's another 3 or 6 months of time that's elapsed, and in a very competitive market, you want to actually, speed to value is a huge advantage for like what you want to do as a DAO and an ecosystem. So I think this is slow. If we were to give this team a small team that could get going, you need someone who's good at doing some research. You need some analysts who can kind of crunch the numbers. That would be the kind of the good first start, and maybe someone who thinks a bit about behavior change, behavioral economics, game theory, those kind of things. But yeah, a crack team of 3 like that could get a long way, I think, in terms of like fleshing this out.
Joseph, I'll let you have the final word. In terms of the team that you would like to see around something like this, and also in terms of the feedback that you've got, is there any feedback that you found particularly helpful or particularly unhelpful?
Well, I definitely agree with Klaus about the team and who I would like seeing to do that. I don't think the DAO has the capacity to hire people with those skill sets itself. That's going to be something that will be very trivial and easy for the OpCo to take care of, actually. So, going slow at this point might actually help us get to the end result faster. If we pump the brakes a little bit and say, let's give this to the OpCo as one of their first main big projects to take on, maybe that's going to be up to the DAO. That's not up to me. And the other part was the feedback to the proposal. There's a lot of excitement. A lot of people building apps on other L2s have messaged me and said, hey, is this real? We'll go to Arbitrum if this is really happening. And that's really exciting to see. I've had about half a dozen people who are serious app builders in other ecosystems come and say that to me. A lot of delegates, like you mentioned, Klaus, have said, hey, this is too complicated. The DAO does not have the operational capacity to work on this, because the largest delegates in the DAO, who are going to be the ones pushing this forward, are very busy, and they might be delegates in 10 other ecosystems too, or they have their own startups that they're running, so
Many
really
such cases.
needs to be I'm sorry, what was that?
Many such cases. Yeah.
Many such cases. Yes. Yeah. I think it really needs to be a dedicated team, which is why the proposal was to, hire a dedicated team. Let's come back to it next week and see how the operational company is going and who wants to really be the champion. Helpful feedback has been, hey, this is how much we think it should cost. These are the types of people we think should work on this. Unhelpful feedback is, include my app, give me a 500 million Arb. Not helpful. That's not the stage that we're at. We're doing planning and seeing how we can get this started. We're not picking who's included yet, right? And also we haven't even picked the size.
Yeah, let me, if I can just jump in here around like eligibility criteria. And I think it's really important to differentiate between a mechanism and then like the criteria or eligibility that you use, because unfortunately in this industry that is blockchain and crypto, there's a huge spectrum of characters in the way that they operate, from like absolute scam artists to like grifters to people who are like real pure high integrity, about separating money from state. I'm about sovereignty, like original kind of cypherpunk virtues. And so when you're designing a program, you have to be able to account for, you're going to get a volume of people applying, from like airdrop farmers to grant farmers to all of that kind of stuff, right? And so you need to do it in an intelligent way. Otherwise, that's the common refrain: oh, we shouldn't do this, we're just going to burn a bunch of cash. Unless you have a high quality eligibility criteria, and we really sort for that, then you can solve for those kind of anti-patterns that I witness in our industry. Yeah.
Right. So everyone who commented, no, airdrops aren't effective, you end up just giving all this money to farmers. Okay, let's not do that. We can just not do that. We can just hire full-time analysts to go in and say, this person's a farmer, this person's not a farmer, this person created value, this person didn't. Here's what we're doing for our airdrop. That's hard. That's a lot of work. That's going to take a small team months at least, working full time on it. Let's start now, and maybe it will be ready in 6 months. Right.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna make the executive decision to skip the Security Council topic for now because we've literally mentioned OpCo about 10 times in the last 2 minutes. So
Yeah, let's go.
yeah, perfect. So let's go on to the OpCo. Klaus, as our resident expert, I'm gonna hand over to you to explain this OpCo proposal. Whilst you do so, I'm going to share my screen so people can have a read of the forums.
Yeah, so it's actually gone through a couple of iterations, and the originating OpCo came from a guy called DK, who's one of the larger delegates. He did the first iteration of it about a year ago, and then that kind of faded out a little bit, and then Entropy took up the mantle and did a new version of this OpCo proposal. In essence, it was originally brought into existence as an idea to solve for, we have this DAO with a big treasury, but we have like 0 employees, and we can't hire anybody. And while we have a large treasury to allocate, the actual velocity of work that we can undertake is actually very slow, and we're not very agile. A big bureaucratic machine, right? And so how could we solve for that? That was like the original intent. And so what has been proposed is that, there's a actual legal entity in some jurisdiction that hasn't been defined yet, that could be stood up, and there's a bunch of cash to support, the legal part, the hiring of the initial staff, what capabilities and responsibilities that they take on, and right now there's an election to stand up who will be on that, the OAT, which is the Oversight and Accountability team, I think, or Transparency. Yeah, Oversight and Accountability and Transparency, I think, is the OAT. So there's a election happening right now. I think there's about another 2 hours left at this time of recording, and looking for the first 3 people, and then those first 3 that are elected in can appoint by their own choosing another 2 people to round out the first council of 5 people, and then they'll crack on and start working out operationalizing the OpCo. Anything you want to add to that, Joe?
What is the OpCo gonna actually do?
Yeah, exactly, right. At the moment, it's not that well defined, and I think that's going to be part of the role of the initial team to really, put the meat on the bones again of what that is. There's an intent there. There's a bunch of challenges which are detailed that the DAO struggles with. And that's the role of the OpCo to start having dedicated team members that can be hired directly through the DAO, and get them on that more full-time talent, 100% Arbitrum aligned and focused.
How much are these OpCo council members paid, and is it important for them to be focused on Arbitrum, or can they be people who are present in multiple DAOs? Has there been any discussion also finally about accountability or reporting from the OpCo? How far along is this proposal at the moment?
Yeah, so these are great questions. I think it's $7.5K USD equivalent a month for the council, and so that's your first question around reporting and accountability. I don't think that's exactly defined. I think you had some suggestions, didn't you, Joe? Yeah, I listened to your pitch that you did the other week. So yeah, maybe you want to riff a bit about on the accountability. That's something that can slip in other DAO initiatives. That's been like a major critique of the GCP recently. So would want to see this really emphasized and front-footed. So maybe you could speak to that piece, Drew.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think how far along is it was the question. It's there, right? It's defined what we want it to be in charge of, how it's going to operate. for the DAO. There's different opinions from different delegates, myself included, on the direction that it should be steered. But I think it's pretty much there, like how it's going to operate and where it is going to exist in this ecosystem between off-chain labs who originally created Arbitrum, the DAO, the Arbitrum Foundation, and now you have the OpCo over here, right? And so the structure is already decided. The last thing here is kind of, let's get it going, let's get it funded, and let's decide who is in charge of accountability beyond the people actually doing the work, right? So we have GCP, which was the Gaming Catalyst program, which received about 200 million Arb, quite a lot of money, and it had an amazing team that was originally.
Sorry, Joseph. Sorry.
Yeah.
Let's just in case people don't know, how much is one Arb worth?
I believe about 33 cents right now, but I could look.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, let me check. Wait, I got CoinGecko over here. Oh my god, it's down 7% today. All right, 3 cents, 30 cents each.
Okay.
So divide by 3 minus a little bit. I say an amount of Arb.
The whole market is down, as we all know at the moment. So it's at historical lows. But I don't.
You're gonna be so tired of winning. So anyway, I don't want to pick on GCP. I don't want to pick on GCP. Just in general, there's been a lot of programs. Money has been put into it by the DAO. And while it's great and it might have competent operators, it could also be a good idea to have another group of people who is not operating the OpCo, but are in charge of accountability and making sure that it's reporting to the DAO, it's meeting its financial reporting requirements, it's meeting its legal requirements, it's making progress on the things that the DAO has assigned it to do. And the DAO members are too busy deciding what to vote on next or making proposals, but we can't get into every line item. We're not going to be able to hold an organization like the OpCo accountable directly from the DAO, because delegates are not going to go line by line and look at every spending thing. And, it can't turn into a full-time job for 50 people in the DAO to make sure the OpCo is doing what it's supposed to be, right? So we need a council to make sure that there's this level of accountability that hasn't necessarily been there for other programs. No one in particular. And I don't think it's necessarily there because something else isn't working. It's preemptive, right? The OpCo is a huge deal. Every other organization that exists in crypto, there is a DAO created, and that's the exit, right? You have a company that's operating, and then it exits to the DAO, and it says, okay, the DAO's in charge now. Arbitrum DAO is the first time ever that the DAO has said, okay, instead of a company creating the DAO or a company creating a foundation that creates the DAO is creating a company, and we're going to operate faster. We're going to do more. We're going to do things that other DAOs cannot do. We're going to make venture capital investments. We're going to build stuff on Arbitrum that the DAO actually owns through this operational company. How many DAOs own a company that can get a US bank account and interface with, $1 trillion asset managers? I don't know.
Well, interesting.
It's really exciting, right? So we can do all these new things, and those things might not necessarily be the specialty of the delegates running Arbitrum DAO. So we need this OpCo to have accountability, to have experts like myself who have worked in venture capital before, who have created investor syndicates and know when things are going well and can report back to the DAO. So I'm really excited for that. I think the OpCo is a really good idea. And yeah, happy to get into, any of my personal things for where I want to drive OpCo or whatever is most helpful.
Well, before we do, I wanted to push back on one of the points about how many other DAOs have done this before. So luckily, I've been doing this DAO Watch show for quite a few years now, and I've seen quite a few other DAOs actually do this. One of them is a DAO called Dash, which was one of the first DAOs. Now, they created a company which DAO created this company, the company was supposed to own assets, and the company was supposed to do pretty much quite a few of the things that this OpCo was supposed to do. For a variety of reasons, this company failed, and the things that they were supposed to do, they ended up not doing. And the reason why I bring it up, and the reason why I started this show altogether, was because how much of that sort of research has been done in the creation of the OpCo, meaning how much, I guess we could call it maybe market research or historical research. Has there been any discussions with any of the people from the Dash community or who may have been involved in that Dash created organization or company, which effectively was a precursor to the OpCo, so that you could maybe find out what those guys done wrong and make sure you don't make the same mistakes? What it kind of does happen quite a lot within crypto and even DAOs is that you get these siloed schools of thought where just as humans, we end up making the same mistakes repeatedly. So I've actually seen these same mistakes happen quite a few times, and they always start with the best intentions. And then it turns out, which jurisdiction do we find becomes a massive question. I guess you're sort of some people are in the States, and now all of a sudden you can have the organization there, whereas I don't know, 6 months ago probably couldn't. All of those sorts of, I was just wondering if that has been happening, and if not, would that be something that you would consider moving forward?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And just to be clear, like, I did not come up with the OpCo, and I was not really part of the planning process. That was very much run by Entropy, as I understand it, which is a small group of people providing services to Arbitrum DAO who are focused solely on Arbitrum DAO. And you can see from the people running for the OpCo accountability board, there is a lot of experience here, right? I've been working for DAOs full time since 2020. So this is like year 6, I think. And I was one of the original members in Metacartel and Raid Guild. Metacartel was the 3rd DAO. Riff is one of the largest delegates on Arbitrum DAO. He started the DAO. Ethereum's the DAO. No, that was the first DAO. So if you want to say, okay, who has the most experience with DAOs? Who knows, who's been through this the most times? These things have only existed for like 8 or 9 years. And the people who created the first ones ever are working on this and have been working on, DAO design and governance design this entire time. So I don't think there's any other group of people that, is more qualified. And I'm sure there's lots of lessons to learn about Dash. I don't know, that particular DAO. There's many hundreds of them now, probably thousands. But I can say I have a very high degree of confidence in Entropy and in the other, experience of the people running for the OpCo board. Even if I'm not selected, I think it's going to be great. Really, really ambitious project. And I'm very optimistic about where it's going, especially because before we have even started the OpCo, we're starting an accountability board for it to make sure that it actually does achieve those things, right? And I don't know about Dash or another example, but I've never seen a DAO commit itself to accountability and commit itself to seeing this through like I have this particular proposal.
Klaus, would you like to follow up that rousing speech from Joseph there?
Was that a speech?
It felt like a call to action. It did feel like right, we're going to get this one right.
It was supposed to just be an explanation, but I'm excited. I'm excited for it. Yeah.
It shows. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with both parts of both of what you were saying, right? CryptoSI, there is that you can get tunnel vision, like as a DAO, and memory can be short, year over year, cycle over cycle. And I didn't know this example you were talking about here, so that's news to me about Dash. And they had the equivalent of like an OpCo. I think some of the inspiration of the current OpCo is coming from DYDX, as I understand it, but that's not my area expertise. Like I haven't delved that deep. We do have a phenomenal amount of talent who lawyers and Griff that you mentioned, people who have been around and I trust their discernment, and they'll raise stuff if they see that we're going off the rails or we've missed something. That's one of the brilliant things about Arbitrum, because there's so many eyes on stuff. People speak out and bring a lot of these lessons learned to the fore. I think we've got good people who have been around a good long time on the case here at Arbitrum.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to scrap talking about the Security Council altogether, because seeing as we've got CupOjoseph here, and he is amazing, incredibly handsome, apparently giving out $500 million. So I'm just going to keep on complimenting that. So whilst we've got CupOjoseph here, I wanted to find out really, what other things are you doing? What do you have planned for the future? Is there anything else you want to tell us about?
Yeah, I mean, mostly I'm really excited for where the OpCo is going. I really want to see the OpCo create an accelerator for Arbitrum apps, so we can have more breakout apps on Arbitrum that the DAO actually owns a piece of. So just creating more value for Arb holders. I'd like to see better coordination between Arbitrum apps and stuff through the OpCo, so that we're using incentives to work together instead of compete with every project on the network. And then I'm also working on another proposal right now that I expect to hit probably at the end of April. So I think this will be out before that. But I think there has been this recurring problem in basically every DAO ever of like long term, the longer the DAO goes on, the more apathy there is of people who are actually part of it. And if you look at the graph of where voting delegation is happening on Arbitrum, being like how much Arb is delegated to who, it's very stagnant. It hasn't really changed very much since airdrop day. So I think we should either have Arb staking, where you get to stake your Arb and delegate at the same time and bring a little bit more dynamism, however you want to say that, to the DAO. Another idea I have is if we can't do staking, if that is being delayed, which is out of my hands, I don't really control that. But there's been a few proposals about staking, and I would really like to see that accelerated. But if we can't do staking, then we have to do something else. So, sorry, I've been alluding to this a bit, but I want to see an upgrade to the Arb token where we make the delegation connected to a curve that goes down over time. And then we have events like a restaking day every 6 months or something, where we encourage everyone who's delegating to update their delegation or redelegate to the same delegates even, and kind of build in a decay function so that we're having more elastic delegation in the DAO and less stagnation over time, because the number of active delegates is going down, and it's very hard to build new delegation, even for people who are the most active in the DAO. And I think a lot of new people who have started contributing to the DAO would agree on that. So I've already made some similar proposals about trying to find delegation for the most active contributors on the DAO. And I think the next step of that is kind of a decay function for existing delegation, which I'm sure is going to be scary for some people, but it's also a really long-term plan to maintain the health of the DAO. So that was a lot of words to say that, but yeah.
Super interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting if perhaps after maybe 2 of these terms, if we can call them that the delegator, you had to change your delegator, otherwise your delegation would be worth 0. Wouldn't that be interesting? Klaus, what do you think of this idea of having a decay function on your delegation? We all know that, I guess we'd call them whales. I call them heavy hands. Across every single DAO, it's always the same. There are 3 or 4 people who can vote something through or vote something away. It has been a problem as old as DAOs themselves. Do you think that this sort of decaying function helps to even out the power and usher in new thoughts, new voices, and new delegates?
It may well do, right? And this is a contentious topic because it touches power, right? And this is, if we think about organizations and governance, since the beginning of time, right? This is how do we organize, how do we govern things as human beings? And so power doesn't naturally want to let go of its power. But if you think about where in traditional governance, non-DAO space, have we developed different checks and balances? If you look in the nation state, you've got every 3 or 4 years, there's elections, and you can have rotation and succession of like who's in power, and we have tons of different mechanisms. Right now, what we've got by and large in the DAO space is at TGE we largely canonize an initial set of like large delegates, and that becomes very sticky and very hard to change over time. So you don't have really the good adaptive mechanisms for, okay, maybe 2 years later the emphasis is different, and actually you want to be find a way to rotate or have a different proportional representation of weighted voice or stake or power. So a decay function could, what it would do, it would basically, people couldn't rest on, hey, I've already got positional power. You have to kind of continually earn your keep, so to speak, and keep demonstrating value, because it erodes day by day. So it could be, it could upset the apple cart quite a huge amount. People already in position in any DAO probably don't want that. But long term, for the future of like DAOs and governance, I think it could be something that is beneficial. Yeah.
It's part of the motivation for doing another airdrop too, is airdrop number 1 really cemented who is in charge of Arbitrum DAO, and doing another one gives us another chance to reward people who are actively contributing the most. There are some delegates that are in the top 15 most powerful delegates on Arbitrum, and they have voted in less than 4% of proposals. Is that person really, providing value to the DAO? And if they're not, why are people still delegated to them? Because there's stagnation, there's apathy. So, let's get more Arb out there, get it delegated, and create better systems. I really like what you said, Klaus, about every democracy on earth has term limits. Maybe we weren't thinking that far ahead when we did the first Arbitrum airdrop, or other ones. We were just trying to get through that moment, and I think that's true for a lot of DAOs, even ephemeral ones like Metacartel, right? So
yeah, and it could actually be more serving of Arbitrum, I think. So if we look at the distribution of the largest delegates in Arbitrum, most of them are DeFi protocols or a service provider. Yet, most recently, Arbitrum's wanting to, say, double down on RWA or AI or gaming. But the actual, the voices in the delegate and the stake that maps to those verticals is not so, active or representative. So we've got like a mismatch from the, the voices and the power and the DAO versus like the future intent and things that we want to go afterwards. Right. And so without having those synchronized, like the default way will stay just to say DeFi. Without like balancing that, in my opinion.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Joseph, this idea that you've got for decaying delegation, have you started a discussion on that anywhere? Is there anywhere that people can go to discuss it, or is it still in the planning stages within your own mind?
Well, this is not a new idea that I just came up with, right? I'm pretty sure people have written about this type of representation and decaying representation since ancient Greece, right? And ancient democracies. So this idea is at least several thousand years old. So if there's any forum that people are discussing that on, feel free to tag me. But I haven't posted on the forum yet. I'm going to post it as a work in progress proposal in a few weeks. Let's get through the OpCo election first. Let's get through launching Neurite later this month. And then let's work on some other stuff to improve the long-term security of the DAO and make it better and work for more people.
Awesome. Okay. Right. I think we've run out of time. Unless go ahead.
Yeah, one last thing just to kind of close us out. Part of my big mission and, the way that I'm looking things at what we're doing here in DAOs and with Arbitrum in particular is I look around at the world and I see, right now on our planet, the trust in traditional institutions is at historical lows, right? People are just not trusting our institutions. And so I look at DAOs as the design and experimentation space where we can be doing reps and iterations to converge on, trusted and effective 21st century institutions. If you come from that orientation, like governance is the product. And, you could make the case as a thesis that the DAOs with the best governance, could be an attractive force that people, want to store their money, want to build on, want to host applications because that's the most robust and effective place to do that, right? So seeing, the best governance as a competitive advantage is something that I would like for Arbitrum to consider and, for all DAOs to consider. And so robust mechanisms, say, around, rotation of power, succession planning, these kind of things is, that's expressing thought leadership into this whole new domain.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Joseph, anything you would like to add to that or failing that, would you like to tell us where people could go to find out more about you, the things that you're doing? And
Sure, yeah. Follow me at CupOjoseph on Twitter or Farcaster or Blue Sky. And follow me on the forum if that is where you hang out and you're a governance nerd like me. And Neurite is NERITE.org, and we'll be launching later this month. So look out for that.
Wait, you're going to have to tell us a little bit about Neurites before we go.
Yes.
What's Neurites?
I did it at the beginning. Neurite is my Arbitrum native stablecoin that I'm working on right now. And final thought, bullish Arbitrum, bullish builders on Arbitrum, bullish Arbitrum DAO, bullish OpCo, and let's build something amazing here. Let's do it.
And shameless shill, if you like, Joseph or myself, you can redelegate your Arb. We're both, delegates in the Arbitrum world, small delegates, and, we care a lot and could appreciate, a few more voting power on us. You can go to, Tally XYZ into the Arbitrum, and then you can see a list of delegates and, put your delegation on there.
I will put a link to both of your delegations in the description below. All right, gentlemen, thank you very, very much for your time. This has been an absolutely awesome discussion. Great to start off the show because we've covered a lot of topics. So thank you very much. Joseph, especially to you, obviously to you as well, Klaus, but especially to you, Joseph. Thank you for coming on our first show and sharing so much information. And also, thank you for all the work that you're doing. As you said, you haven't actually been paid for some of the things that you've done, so you are doing it for what I would consider to be the right reasons. So thank you for that as well. And hopefully, long may you stay in the ecosystem. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You all.